Okay, so welcome to YMP's YMP TV series. My name is Balraj Hansra. I am one of the directors at the Young Mining Professionals Perth. Today, I'm really honoured to have a guest from Singapore, so Malan Wu from Mackenzie. And Malan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Baraj, nice to talk to you again today, and thank you very much for the invitation. So, audience, I'm very pleased to meet you. So, I'm Malan, based in Singapore. So, as you can see, Chinese. I was born and raised there, but I spent the past 20 years living in the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, and now Singapore. So before I joined Wood Mackenzie, I spent about 10 years with Rio Tinto across quite a few geographic locations, doing some really exciting work. And the past 2 years, I have been leading a large team of purpose-driven experts in steel, iron ore, and metallurgical coal, delivering industry-leading insights on this market dynamics. We're very passionate about energy transition. So obviously that's why we are here having a conversation partially. Personally speaking, I am a strong diversity inclusion champion. I'm a key mentor and coach myself because I see so much joy in growing myself as well as helping others to realize their full potential. Baraj, really good on you doing this charity work because I can relate. Myself is also board member of the Women in Mining and Resource Singapore branch. So we do very similar activities to you. So
Thank you, Malan. But today, I think it's really interesting that we're going to talk about the energy transition. It's something that's in the media every day. It's at the forefront of the mining and resources and energy industries. So I guess a bit of a summary. The energy transition is really a pathway towards transforming the global energy sector from what has been a fossil-based, source to zero carbon by the second half of the century. So at its heart is the need to reduce energy-related CO2 emissions to limit climate change. So I guess in the current position, regulation and commitment to decarbonisation has been pretty mixed from a personal position. But the energy transition will continue to increase in importance, in my view, as investors prioritise ESG, so environmental, social and governance factors. So Marlon, I'm really keen to hear, what does the energy transition mean to you?
what we're worried about is there's increased amount of carbon in the atmosphere and causing warming, so therefore causing climate change. So the United Nations defined climate change as a long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. And these shifts may be natural, but since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver for this climate change. So primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels. So it is so from a personal angle, energy transition would enable us to mitigate the dire consequences of climate change. Things like the threat to availability of water, severe drought and severe rain, and impact on biodiversity and marine life, and threatening the food safety. And the list is really long. So if we do embark on an energy transition path, so that you and I and our children, the trees, the ocean, the animals, and planet can have a future, put it in a layman term. Professionally speaking, I think the world need urgently take action to accelerate energy transition. There have been some progress made, like you said, and I have observed increased resolve to tackle this challenge. But the reality is that we are moving way too slowly. So with Mackenzie, we do our analysis. In the base case, we think the world temperature will rise to somewhere between 2.2 and 2.4 degrees pre-industry, right, by mid-century. So if the world chooses to conduct business as usual. However, there is an aggressive goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by end of this century. If we do this would save off severe climate disruptions. So what do? So I lead a very large team, like I mentioned. We think that we can positively impact the industry by helping decision making for all the stakeholders involved, your policymakers, industry, miners, for example, steel makers, or even consumers, to increase awareness in preparation to support the green transition, energy transition. We do that by contributing our insights, our analysis and data, and of course, very backed by very solid analysis.
Awesome. Thanks, Malan. So,
Yeah.
so one of the things I'm actually interested personally, what are your thoughts on the importance of the mining industry in decarbonisation?
Well, so the mining industry's Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emission accounts for somewhere around 4 to 7% of the global total. If we add Scope 3, the number will add up to 28% thereabouts. So for context, the Scope 1 covers your direct emissions from operations, and the Scope 2 covers indirect emissions from power generation. And also Scope 3 covers all other indirect emissions. On the one hand, the mining industry is the problem. But on the other hand, the mining industry can play an important role to accelerate energy transition. For example, we have many miners, such as your company, BHP, and also Rio Tinto Anglo American, invest in renewable power and also charging their mining fleet to hydrogen fueled steel trucks to tackle Scope 1. Changing the mining fleet to hydrogen fuel cell trucks to tackle Scope 1 and 2 emissions. Miners also partnering with shipping company, investing in LNG shipping fleet and making green corridors in marine logistics. Miners also very proactively partnering with the end users to find a solution to reduce Scope 3 emissions. From a supply perspective, though, the mining industry plays a critical role in enabling and accelerating the energy transition. So our vice chair for metals and mining, Julian Kettle, he coined this phrase. He says, energy transition begins and ends with metals. I will explain why in a bit. So decarbonize the metals and mining industry is really a huge task. But where there are challenges, we think there are opportunities. So I think for young mining professionals, your community, you can unleash your creativity in helping the industry to bring green metals to markets. So to accelerate the low carbon evolution at operation sites, and to help finding and commercializing green technology. Just a few examples.
Thanks, Malan. And it's evident it's quite a complex issue. I guess like when we look at the current trajectory that we're on, where do you see us in 10 years if we stay on this trajectory? Noting that there's been a lot of work done, but many call, I guess, the work being done as probably not, we need to do more essentially. So where do you see us ending up?
Well, if we continue the current speed, the globe will be a lot warmer, and we would have done very little in 10 years' time. We are further away from the net zero target, make the task even bigger for future generation.
Yeah. So I guess like summing that up, we need to really accelerate our efforts as a society. So leading on to, I guess, the next question, what is the hard truth on where we are and where we need to be in terms of the green transition, if you call it that?
Well, the energy transition will be built with metals and bulk commodities. So, for example, electrification and the rapid growth of low carbon technologies will drive the transformational demand for key transition metals way beyond the current supply capacity. So because of this, it will lead to a sustained period of elevated prices. So amount base metals, for example, we see an acute need for massive new investment for copper and nickel, for cobalt and lithium. The outlook for cobalt and lithium, the outlook is even more extreme. So mine and refining capacity for back to raw materials needs to move to an industrial scale so that it can meet the exponential growth in demand for electric vehicles. For my area, the steel value chain, the decarbonization to successfully get to net zero by 2050, we will need much more supply for high-grade iron ore and coking coal. And so investments to, into bring these supplies to market is not happening fast enough. That's a reality. And also these investments will have long lead time to bring new supply from the mines to market.
How do we balance economic growth and the energy transition on a global scale? Is there a balance we should be striving for? Are we there yet? Or what's your view on that?
To limit global warming to like 1 degrees Celsius in line with the Paris Agreement, the energy transition, like we said, let's make it happen quicker. So the world has the means and motive and opportunity to do so. So we must accept that and acknowledge it. So less certain is the impact of accelerated energy transition on the global economy. So our latest research suggests that preventing more extreme warming is likely to have a positive economic impact, but that the actions required to deliver it could have offsetting negative effect. So net, we estimate that keeping warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius would shave 2% of our base case GDP forecast for 2050. This is equivalent to a cumulative $75 trillion in lost economic output. So some economies will feel the effects more than others. So your hydrogen exporting and carbon intensive economies are likely to see the biggest hits to the economic output. So your less developed and low income economies will bear disproportionately high burden, and underlying the challenges achieving a fair and just transition. So let's say economies that are already closer to net zero targets will see a smaller economic impact from now to 2050. For a fortunate few, the transition need not result in economic loss at all. Those that are better positioned, typically wealthier economies with a strong propensity to invest in new technologies, they may even benefit economically by 2050. So wealth and income effects will be more pronounced. So capping global warming will boost population growth, obviously. So the hit on GDP per capita will be more severe than the headline GDP. So this is talking at really high level. I guess my message in a very simple terms is that developing economies will feel the burden much more than the more mature, more advanced economies. So it is very important for us to ensure a just transition.
Are there any tips or a call to action perhaps for those from the young mining professionals Perth network or even globally that you could offer from your perspective on the green transition?
I heard this quote is really good. It says, enough has been said on what can be done. Can we start doing what we can? So for your young mining professionals network, I really encourage you to do your own research, to do your critical thinking, to think, okay, is this a worthy purpose for me to positively contribute to? There are so many ways we can help. In my personal capacity, I try to consume quite consciously, prevent any waste. Can I be a little bit more willing to pay for more responsibly produced products and goods? And that's in a personal capacity. And then in a professional capacity, what can you do? What can you study? And how can you join an organization or community to to give your contribution that would help in a small way. Because I truly believe in order to make massive change, we need a movement. In order to have movement, we need everybody hands on deck and everybody to contribute.
Thank you. Definitely. I think we all have a lot more power than we realize in this transition, and we're all in it together. So thank you, Marlon. Really appreciate your time. So to all those watching, that was Marlon Wu from Wood Mackenzie talking about the green transition from Singapore. So really appreciate your time and also some really great insights into the transition that I think all of us can probably learn something from.
You're welcome.